I can't believe it's already July of 1918. It has been a few years since I applied to work as a voluntary nurse. My life is so different now. The war has changed everything. I didn't work back in England. It wasn't expected of me to do so. It was unheard of for women to work. After all, work was for men. Oh, how things have changed. There were simply no men left to work in the factories. They were all fighting in the war. Positions were in need of being filled, and they were done so by ordinary women. Dorothea, along with other women, rushed to the factories like bees swarmed to a hive. I miss her dearly. I have not seen my close friend for what seems to be too long. I miss her laughter. Oh, how she used to light up the room, and how can I forget the stories she used to tell me? I was always quite curious about them. Peter had enlisted just before I'd come here. She doesn't talk about them much in our letters, and I do not ask. I remember their engagement, which took place just over a year before the war. The ceremony was small, but beautifully decorated with roses used as centerpieces on the tables. Things were simple back then. Though I do not wish this war on any individual, it has given me a chance to do something more. It is hard to believe that war has given me and many women more freedom. When the opportunity arose, I volunteered immediately. After the war had started, I had begun to see advertisements and hear of positions available. I remember my mother and my father being less enthusiastic about my desire to apply, but for once I felt like I could be in a position of use and aid for the soldiers. The trained nurses here are wary of us. Sister Margaret is very disagreeable at the best of times. I have come to the assumption that they do not trust our involvement within the workings of the medical base. Though we volunteered in the thousands, we are not fully trained in a similar fashion to them. Frustratingly, as a volunteer, I seem only fit for domestic labour. Generally, we are given the menial jobs of washing bandages or perhaps readying the beds in preparation for the arrival of more soldiers. It was only a few months ago that I was allowed to change dressings and administer anaesthetics. Emily continually questions this madness, as she calls it. I am concerned that she will sometimes say something regrettable. It does not surprise me. Emily is strong-headed and impulsive, and I sometimes wish I were more like her, independent and confident in oneself. Still, I try to believe that I'm still of more use here, and I do believe the system is changing. The nurses are simply under a great amount of pressure to tend to the uncountable numbers of injured soldiers. It is only a matter of time until I, along with the other volunteer nurses, will be allowed to do more here. It is busy here, but when I have time, I like to talk to the soldiers. Some of them, despite their injuries, are still able to laugh and joke. I wish I could say the same for all of those who come here. I talked to Lieutenant White again today. He surprised me by giving me a poem he'd written. It is terribly sweet of him to do so. When he arrived a few weeks ago, he was very agitated, but after a while, he began to tell me of his friend. Dear old Edmund, he would call him. I have always been fascinated by stories, and I do believe Lieutenant White appreciates having someone to talk to amongst others. Of course, we just deal with the casualties from the front line at the casualty clearing station. The best we can do is patch up the men and clean the wounds before they're sent to a more equipped hospital. I have to say, when I volunteered, I never anticipated such violent injury. Soldiers injured by shrapnel, limbs torn off, and faces mangled. However, the trauma is worse. Shell shock, they call it. There are no surgical procedures which can help these soldiers overcome what they have witnessed. So many of them just sit and stare, not seeing anything and unable to unsee what they have seen. Lord, help us all. But among all this misery, good news seems afoot. There have been rumours of the war drawing to an end. The Germans want to retreat. Perhaps it will be time to go home soon.
Ah, there you are. Well, the nurse's work is never done, you know. I thought you'd learnt that by now.
But I've finished my shift, sister.
No, you haven't. It's not 6 o'clock yet. Get started on these. The Germans may be retreating, but the number of bandages is not. Sorry. I'm sure your lieutenant won't miss you for long.
I'm sure I don't know what you mean. What are you going to do after the war finishes? You know, when this is all over?
If it's all over, when it finishes. We seem to have been here forever. I suppose I'll get a job in a hospital. Looking for nurses at Queen Mary's in Sidcup, where they're doing the facial reconstruction under Dr. Harold Giles, I think it is. Absolutely magnificent. Rebuilt people's faces. Really on the cutting edge. You know, there's more work to be done. It doesn't stop with the surrender. I suppose you know that. You've seen the chaps that come through here, all mangled. Thousands. Thousands and thousands. I want to do my bit, you know, not just here in France, but at home. The pain of this war runs deeper than just a gangrenous leg. Still, there's work to be done. What about you, young Charlotte? What lies ahead for you?
I don't really know. Marriage, I suppose. It is what is done in life, my mother always says. She always expected me to get married.
And what did you expect?
What do you mean?
Well, you don't sound particularly enthused by the thought of marriage, and rightly so. Why should you be the property of a man? Women are just as capable as men, if not more capable. We've shown that, you've shown that. Just wrapping these bandages. We've shown how capable we are, in the factories, in the field hospitals, even on buses, for God's sake. And why put all that to waste? Why get married to a man? Maybe they'll listen to Mrs. Pankhurst in the room now. Now we've shown them. Equal rights for women, that's what I say. Anyway, you never know, you can train as a nurse, although your bandage wrapping skills have much to be desired, I must say.
What if you will? That would be much better. I do hope you're right. I feel useless if I went back to how I lived before. Perhaps I'll train as a secretary or something. Have a room of one's own, my own life, my own income. What that would be.
What indeed. Well, that's all the bandage is done, and it's 6 o'clock. You're free to go.
Thank you, sister.